When I got married and I wanted to start a business, my dad chewed me out in public in front of my family members and my wife right before we got married. Why won't you get a freaking job? You need to provide. This is the way that you need to do things.
Nicholas, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. My life was transformed for the positive, my whole life, everything I'm doing now in just one moment. I didn't have podcasts to listen to. I didn't have Facebook ads targeting me yet. So I appreciate you creating a space for the people that are listening to come expectant and have that transformation as well. But key for the people that are listening, let's make it to the very end because that's where transformation happens.
That's very cool. So you preface that with one moment. Do you want to share with us that moment to kick it off?
Well, first, I have to have a negative moment because I believe everyone thinks that something really bad can happen in one moment that could really suck and derail you. And so that moment for me as a man, especially, was growing up in my father's home with a split up home. My mom lived about 10 minutes away. My dad lived in a house. My stepmom moved in about 2 weeks later. I'm only 4 years old. So I have no clue what's going on. I feel uncomfortable. Do I call this lady mom? I start feeling uncomfortable with my dad because like my mom's not there. My dad hates my mom. My mom hates my dad. And I'm the person in the middle. And so what it came down to is my dad always wanted to be a motocross racer. And I feel that this last generation of maybe like a baby boomer generation, and maybe this doesn't fit some people listening, maybe it does, is they did the exact opposite. Or it's like, oh, my dad never bought me anything, so I'm going to buy my kids everything. My mom was never home, so I'm going to be a stay-at-home mom, and I'm not going to get a job because that's like really bad. And there was a lot of like, because they did this, now I'm going to do this over here. My dad
Overcorrecting.
drank, so I'm never going to take a sip of alcohol. And so this huge pendulum swing that also has effects, cause and effect. And I'm really big on this when it comes to politics as well. I'm like, can we at least look at what this is going to do over time? Because you're still jacking people up. You know, you tell your kid they're perfect, then they grow up thinking that they're perfect and they think they can never do anything wrong. And so because of that, they never talk to anyone about their feelings and they try to muster up this and it still messes things up. So I get to this point where I'm like, how can I get my dad's approval? Everything in my life is about, is my dad watching? That's my constant thought in my head. That's what pushed me. I wanted to be a pro motocross racer, just like my dad wanted himself to be, and then he wanted me to be. So one day I'm like, I know what's going to get his attention. I'm going to tell him I want to be the best motocross racer in the world. So I remember he walks down the hallway, through the kitchen, down 3 steps into the garage that's off the kitchen, in the back door of the garage outside. But right on the way down to the bottom of those stairs, I said, Dad, I want to be the best motocross racer in the world. I was so excited. And he looked at me and he's like, you'll never be the best. And I thought at the time that my dad didn't believe in me. But really, that was the straw that broke the camel's back of someone that was important to me confirming what I already believed, because I was the one that didn't believe in me. But that one moment sent me off the deep end. I went from a 3.5 GPA my freshman year of high school to a 1.8 GPA. I went to summer school every year just to graduate. I gained 60 pounds. I gave up on all dreams and visions. I didn't have any girlfriend all throughout high school until one day a kid brought a bag of fruit to school. I want this to be super simple for people listening. It wasn't Tony Robbins. It wasn't someone who gave me this amazing story of how they went from rags to riches, billionaire from zero. It was a kid that was at my school that did something different than the normal. They weren't conformed to the patterns of the world. And he opened up his bag, pulled out a bag of fruit in a Ziploc. And he said, I said, why are you eating that food? Like, that didn't make any sense to me in high school. He's like, I got a trainer, a boxing trainer, to weigh in at the correct weight and perform at a high level. And boom, it clicked for me. Lost 60 pounds in 6 months, which is also my first business that I launched. I would have never met my wife. I would have never reconnected with my dad. I would have never taken an opportunity. I self-sabotaged everything because I was so insecure. And if it didn't come with me first valuing myself, I always say, why should anyone else value you if you don't value you? It's a really weird expectation to me. It's like, oh, I don't invest in myself, but I want everyone else to take care of me. Like, whoa, like maybe we should start with us. And that's what I did. And that's what transformed my life forever for the positive.
So let me break that down a little bit because I love how simplistic that is. The bag of fruit represented what?
A way out, a solution, and a plan. So I found, just to actually put this into a framework, I found that I mostly work with people that they know what to do, but they don't do it. That's what I'm
Right.
really great at. They know all the answers. These are like the health experts that are super overweight. I've met many of them, and they know
Mm-hmm.
everything about olive oil and different oils. They know everything about everything, but they just don't apply what they know. And so they're not seeing the fruits of the knowledge. They don't have the information plus application equals transformation equation. The other side is you have motivated people. I was always motivated. I was just putting myself into 10 hours a day of video games because I didn't know how to change my situation. You see, Arnold Schwarzenegger covered his entire body and only exposed the worst parts. We live in a culture where everyone covers the worst parts and only exposes the perfect angles of themselves. Why? Because we think we can't change it. Arnold knew that if he focused on this weak point in his life, he could change his situation. I didn't. So I was the person that was motivated in life in general, yet I didn't know how or understand or have an epiphany about how I could change my situation. So when I saw this, that was scary. I wore a sweatshirt every day. I had been made fun of for being overweight and fat, man boobs, all these things. So for me to even say anything was putting myself out there, right? People may listen to your podcast, but what if you were to do a live event or maybe a small mastermind style group? Now all of a sudden they have to show up. Now all their insecurities, people can point out things about them. And that's also how I got known from Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi and Russell. And now I get tagged and stuff all day from your mess is your message. Like, until I was able to share my message and share who I was fully, I would never take opportunities because there was always something in the back of my mind that I still had to fix and become perfect at or become great at, overcome before other people could find it out about me. So when I was overweight, my insecurities were right in front of everyone. If I said, "Oh, I don't have a food problem," homie, you're overweight. Like you have some type of problem. I don't know what this is, and I get that every once in a while there's health conditions, but I didn't have a health condition. Whereas other people, maybe it was drinking, pornography, something of that nature, where they could hide it from everyone. No one knows. Well,
Right.
mine was right there in front of people. So I actually got an opportunity to have a TV show on Disney Channel, and I sabotaged the entire thing because I was so afraid to be in front of that camera and for everyone in the world to be able to use something that I didn't address myself, which was, why is that kid so fat? Why is he so fat? So it wasn't until I started sharing with people like, hey, I was fat and here's why. Hey, I struggle with this. I put all my dirty laundry out there for people to see, and then all of a sudden, all the ammunition that they had to use against me was gone.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't use it because
Mm-hmm.
I already used it.
Right.
I'm the one who said it. And so that was the formula. Whether you know what to do and you don't take action, or if you are motivated like I was and just didn't have a plan. That to me was like, oh, that if I just do that, it'll produce this result. Done. That sounds great. I'll trust it. And I've noticed that over time, as you become more familiar, realize I use the word familiar, more familiar with the process that you're using, then all of a sudden we have no expectation. The first time I went to a live event, 20 years old, started my first business 1 month prior to that live event. I didn't want to go. All my friends pushed me, get friends like that. They said, Nicholas, first you get educated, then you make money. You don't make money and then get educated. I was like, all right, fair enough, I guess. So I flew out. I was like, I haven't made any money in my business. How am I supposed to go to a live event? I go out there. There was one speaker, Jason O'Toole. I still remember his name. He gets on
Oh, I
stage and he
remember
says,
Jason.
yeah, he goes, listen, guys, if you make a list of 50 people and you follow this process, you're going to do $12,500 in sales. And I was sitting there looking at everyone like, is everyone else hearing? This was like me again. I was motivated, but he just gave me a little bit of a framework. Well, everyone else was like not even writing it down. They had been to these kinds of things before. They had heard dozens and dozens and dozens of speakers. This was a normal occurrence, right? It was the familiarity that bred the contempt. It was like all of a sudden I left that event, and in 30 days I did $12,546 in sales. I got honored in front of people at this next event, all these different things, and all the people that I saw before were still sitting out there not taking notes because they already know that stuff. They already know how that works. And that's one of the scariest things to me, because information without application creates unbelief. Because every single time you learn, your subconscious mind knows that it doesn't change your situation. So for me, every single time I learn, because of those moments, I've been so careful to steward learning and knowledge that I learn something, write it down, and figure out how can I apply this right now to create some type of forward momentum in my life where I'm applying it and seeing some type of outcome and result. And I also have the ability to steward that for a group of people. That's why I focus more on, it's easy to work with people that are motivated, they don't know what to do. Here's the plan, go do it. For people that already know the plan, they can talk all about funnels, they can talk about all about business, they can talk all about marriage, and then they go home and they're yelling at their wives. They're yelling at their husbands. They can talk all about it, they're not doing it. And that's where I steward expectation and create transformational environments where people can shift in those moments just like I did, but have those shifts of expectation, recommit to themselves, re-follow through with themselves. And a lot of this was learned through being mentored now for 10 years by my Navy SEAL mentor, because I was the same way. I faked my work ethic. I only worked when people were looking. I didn't work when people weren't looking. Everyone thought, man, Nicholas is amazing. And then all of a sudden, I knew that I was not congruent on the other side. And he was a transformational mentor for me, and continues to be.
Wow, great stuff. So I'm imagining that was Visalis, the 90-day challenge, because I know
Yep.
that environment and some of the guys that created it
Yeah.
was
And me and Brandon and Kalen Poulin now, but Kalen Toole back then was a big top earner under 25. Brandon was right around my age, 17, 18, not even old enough to actually promote the challenge, but we're doing it anyway. And they've gone on to build a 60 million plus dollar business right now, and they're 27 years old. So I met some amazing people throughout that process.
So you mentioned something about you spent big part of your life imagining that your dad was watching. How is that parlayed today? Because I think a lot of young men, or maybe even older men, still have this desire to hear from their father that they're proud of them, et cetera, et cetera. Do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, it's a really great question. I actually just answered a question inside of one of our mastermind groups, not mine specifically. It's a mastermind that I invest in, that's with Russell Brunson. It's an inner circle mastermind. Every person in there invests $50,000 a year. And someone had asked, hey, I'm getting a lot of disapproval from family. This is pretty normal for anyone doing something different. I'm very sad. Like, my family doesn't ever support my business. It makes me feel discouraged. And you kind of fill in the blanks. You understand what's going on. And I think everyone has to go through this. We have this hierarchy of needs, and one of them is just that feeling like you're talking about of approval and acceptance and all these things. And I remember when I was talking to this person inside of this mastermind group, I kind of broke it down that, one, understanding that, like, no one's going to see things the way that you see it, want what you want. Like, I just had to make a decision that I'm not doing things for other people. Even in practice at first, like, I just bought a house and we closed on Friday, and my wife's like, oh, I want to share this. And my first thought now is like, I don't really care if anyone knows. Like, I don't care if people know that I have a house. I don't want them to know where I live. I'm not going to share the whatever it is, because there's only two ways to go about it. Either it makes you feel really good because you bought a really expensive house, or it makes you feel bad because it wasn't expensive enough based on the people that are looking at it. Like, to me, there's not a big outcome. And so generally what ends up happening, this is a deeper topic, which is cool. If you want your dad's approval, of course, if your dad's not around right now, or you don't see him that often, you just focus on, man, like, how can I start doing things for why do I want to do them? Well, and stop doing it for the search of approval. But then there's other things where your family's still present and they disapprove actively for what you're doing. Realize that they're trying to manage expectations. They don't want you to fail because they've failed. Right? They're out there because they failed before. They're now projecting their own insecurities on you. They don't understand it. Right? If they've worked their whole life and then they see you take a route that was business, they tried that once and it failed. So again, going back to managing expectations, when I was 60 pounds overweight and I wanted to lose weight, at first, when it was just kind of BS surface level stuff, it was, oh, go after it. Good job, Nicholas. As long as it was a fad like everyone else and went back to regular life. But as soon as I stopped eating food out with people, as soon as I stopped eating the desserts that were made, as soon as I stopped eating dinner every once in a while with the family because it didn't really fit in with what my goal was, then all of a sudden it was like, oh my gosh, what's up with you always doing these things? Why are you always like this? You're so strict. Why can't you live it up a little bit? Because I was breaking through the norm. This was crabs in a bucket. You don't have to put a lid on a bucket of crabs. They pull each other back down into the bucket. They constantly are pulling people down. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's how it started until I got a vision for myself and where I wanted to go and why I was going there. What do you want? Why do you want it? How do you get there? Until I got a vision for the two. What do I want? Why do I want it? That was clear for myself and not for the approval of my family. I would have never gotten through that season. Because I got through it, then all of a sudden it started inspiring. My family's lost hundreds of pounds. I wanted to go to church when I was 18. It was great when it was simple and I just wanted to be a good kid. All of a sudden, I wanted to travel to 13 different countries and go serve the poor. It became a problem. I became a bug in their ear because I was living a lifestyle with a standard that was up here, not a standard that was down here. When I wanted to get married, it sounded great when I got a girlfriend. And then all of a sudden, when I wanted to get married at 20, my wife was 18, I had no job. It became, are you sure you want to do this? This is a really big commitment. Shouldn't you get a job first? When I got married and I wanted to start a business, my dad chewed me out in public in front of my family members and my wife right before we got married. Why won't you get a freaking job? You need to provide. This is the way that you need to do things. And at this point, I had been too far detached from wanting the approval of my father and all these things. Yet the one time that it came up again, and now I'm able to consult and help build my family's companies. I ran my dad's company for 2.5 years. Family's lost hundreds of pounds. My now family looks at our marriage and goes, "This is so amazing at what you guys have," right? Because now it's on the other side, right? People want people to support blindly when all they've ever had is negative. People can relate more with bad things than they can with good things. If I say, hey guys, I made $1 million. Hey, our business did 300K this month. No, that doesn't. But if I say, hey, during COVID, I had to close down an event, it probably cost me like 400 grand. They're like, oh man, yeah, it sucks. Like that's, oh, Nick, like I feel so bad, and then all of a sudden we know that that triggers a reaction of getting acceptance. So then we just start creating problems. I don't want to go down that road.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So the one last time that it happened to me, I failed my first business with Visalis. Visalis failed as well. And I didn't know how to start my own business personally, do it all on my own. Visalis, for context, network marketing company. So I'm trying to start my own business, can't make it. I'm in debt. I start carpet cleaning for my dad. And I remember just talking big game. I'd go to some networking events, I'd go to some business events, and I would tell them, yeah, I'm growing a carpet cleaning company. Sure, I'm making $1,400 a month working for my dad. And what I'm planning on doing is consulting 10 carpet cleanings locally, carpet cleaning companies, raising them to $1 million. And then when the economy turns, I'm going to buy them all up and have the biggest carpet cleaning company in all of San Diego. Sounds awesome. Luckily, I had a mentor. My mentor was the Navy SEAL. He came back from the deployment. He also is a multi-million-dollar net worth and phenomenal business person. And I told him the same thing. I was so excited to tell him because I wanted his approval, just like my dad. He'd become like a father figure to me. And he looks at me and he says, you haven't changed since I left. That sounds good, but you haven't changed. You need to quit this. And I was like, what about my dad? Like, I need to take care of. No, you don't. It's not your responsibility. And I just remember leaving there. And because I had grown and because he had built a relationship with me, I left there and I said, I'm never going to allow anyone ever again to tell me that I haven't grown. Like, it's just not going to happen. So I went out there and rapidly grew. I had him look at every single talk, every Facebook Live, every video, every speaking engagement for 2 years. He made me sit there. He was taught by Bill Clinton's speaking coach, so that's why I kind of trusted. He knew the info, not the best speaker at the time, but he knew what I didn't have any option. So he'd make me sit down and he'd make me watch it with him, and he'd stop it every 30 seconds and point out every single thing that I did stupid or wrong for 2 years. Got my first compliment 2 years later. Didn't even think I was going to be successful. He said, if there's any way you're going to be successful, it's going to be because of your wife, because she's driven, she's smart, she's talented. She's like, I don't know about you, though. Or that's what he said. So just realize that that's very different. I got broken from the first time my dad said that. I had grown personally since then, and I was hungry to continue to grow. And that mentor was there at the right time to call out my BS, because we can all put on a facade. And, since then, I would say about 2 years later from that moment, We did our first 500K 3 years after that moment. We did our first $1 million in sales. And I was legitimately living in a 400 square foot apartment, making 1,400. I made 19 grand and 21 grand, talking big game. Till that mentor called me out. I started making the investments. I started growing personally. I started taking responsibility, and everything changed.